Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli with Little Blue. Look what he's got on.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can clearly see because of the thumbnail, so.
My genuine Indiana Jones fedora.
Yep. And yes, remember when we mentioned this? It was in a vlog we did. The second to last vlog. The one before the last one, talking about this, and we were just talking about this, and it was official. We did announce this. Yes, we're doing this. We are reviewing a couple of Sean Connery films starring Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with, yes, you read the title. We are reviewing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
We are indeed.
Yes, and of course, hence with him the fedora, which is pretty obvious, and because you read the title. So
yes.
So, what about Indiana Jones: Last Crusade? Where do we start off?
Well, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is my absolute favorite Indiana Jones movie, followed by Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was the fourth movie.
I think same here with me.
But the reason I love,
Raiders of the Lost Ark can't top off Raiders as well. So
The Last Crusade is
am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Last Crusade is my favorite movie because it addresses the search for the Holy Grail,
right?
And the cup of Christ, the cup that Christ used for the Last Supper, and supposedly the cup that caught the blood of Christ at the site of the crucifixion.
Yeah.
That was entrusted to Joseph of Arimathea, that eventually found its way into enemy hands and was passed down and was finally hidden in this big cavern somewhere in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great movie because all of the clues, the things that Sean Connery's character, Dr. Jones,
Henry Jones,
had discovered over the years. He had researched it for years and years and years, found all the clues, all the ways to get through all the booby traps that lead you to the Holy Grail. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And the opening to it, because it starts off with Indy as a young boy.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yep. And
it starts out with
because he was in the Boy Scouts.
Mm-hmm. Joaquin Phoenix's younger brother,
River Phoenix,
who unfortunately died of a drug overdose outside the. I remember when that happened. It was outside of a club.
We're bringing that up.
Yeah, I hate to say it. It was called the Viper. It was a.
No, I'm talking about River Phoenix's death. So
yeah, I say it. I have to say it because it's more of a public service announcement, because it goes to the fact that drugs are a bad thing, and drugs have a dead end.
Right.
Alcohol has a dead end.
You got that right.
And that's what happened to River Phoenix, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And such a waste of talent, because he channeled Harrison Ford in that part. Absolutely channeled him.
And totally did, because an impression of Harrison Ford, if Harrison Ford was young, so.
Yeah, but
and the thing is, River Phoenix and Harrison Ford, they did do a movie before that. It had to do something with the Mosquito, I think it's the Mosquito Coast or something. They play father and son.
Well,
that was in 1985, I'm sure. So
River Phoenix was so good at portraying a very young Indiana Jones, and you see some of the things that molded him. You see, at first, he's not afraid of snakes. But then after he falls into the pit of snakes, and this big pit viper is getting ready to bite him, and he barely escapes.
But then he falls in he sees the viper. It's the viper first, then he falls into the pile of snakes.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's the order.
That's probably what gave him his fear of snakes.
Yep.
Then you see how he gets the scar on his chin
from the whip. From the whip, yeah.
Which I thought was just fantastic that they put that in there.
Because Harrison Ford has an actual scar.
Exactly. Spielberg put that in there as kind of a nod to Harrison Ford, that actual scar he has on his chin.
Yeah, very clever.
Very clever. So
and even say Han Solo, he has a scar on his chin. You wonder how he got that. Maybe in a fight or something. So
right,
it's something.
And I think that what happened with what happens with his character in the beginning. You see how Indiana Jones was shaped, and then the archaeologist who gives him his hat. You see how gets the famous fedora.
You lost today, kid, but whatever.
That doesn't mean you have to like it.
Yep, and he puts it on, and
and then the next scene.
Yeah, because when he puts his head down, that's when it translates to Harrison Ford.
Yeah, it's like a wipe, and then you see then you see him, and he's bloodied, and the guy's hitting him in the face, and he just starts smiling because he's realizing, this is why I love what I do.
Yeah.
And
he's back, and he's on a boat, still going after that piece of treasure that he found.
Yeah, exactly.
And also because the guy in white, because he had the cane and such, because having the treasure, and like I forget what he says in Indy. This is the
Cross of Coronado,
and I forget what he says, but yeah, Indy's like, it belongs in a museum, and so do you. Throw him over to the side.
Exactly.
So, and it's funny. It's hard to. It's funny because even Indy, like, he goes at him and he literally has him. He knocks him out of the stairs, like, has him fall to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So, but eventually, because Indy, he does get the artifact. The entire ship blows up.
Exactly.
And the return to the high school.
Yes, exactly.
And
college. He's a college professor.
Right, we're college.
And university professor.
And we see Marcus Brody, of course.
Of course. And then, of course, Indy is spirited away by three big guys who, take him to
that's the first time this has happened.
Mr. Donovan,
instead of
who's a very,
that was a little blues phone.
Very influential.
This review is so far. I've done a couple crazy stuff going on.
It's all right. We just keep going, right?
Yeah, and again, the camera. I was trying to fix the camera, so.
Mr. Donovan is sort of a.
That's about good right there.
Is a philanthropist, and he's big into antiquities and artifacts, and he's donated a lot of money to the university over the years.
And the actor who plays him, he also played played. I forget the general's name, but he was the general in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
And yes, Lord Vader. The shield will be down in moments. You may start your landing. So that's him.
And you notice when he walks in the room, there's a dinner party going on in the next room, the adjacent room, and they bring Indiana Jones into this private area, and then Donovan comes in, and when the door comes open, you can hear the piano playing, and what's it playing?
The Imperial March.
The Imperial March.
But
Darth Vader's theme.
I can't hear it. I try to listen to it at times, and I just can't really seem to.
It's the tempo. The tempo it's almost disguised by the tempo because it's a much more melodic tempo, and it's has a lighter feel to it, and it's almost in a different. It's almost in a different.
You can really catch it at first unless you really do.
Exactly. You have to really be listening to it, and you can hear it, but you have to pay very close attention. It's just the way it's being played on the piano. It doesn't have that dark overtone that you have with the orchestra, the orchestration.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. It's a much lighter, melodic, tune. And it's so funny because you don't really catch it. And somebody, I don't know who caught it, or if it was actually Steven Spielberg who came out and said, "Hey, by the way, we used the Darth Vader theme in the Imperial March and it was like, what? Really? Seriously? But you do hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
But then when Indiana Jones tells Mr. Donovan, he says, you got the wrong Jones. He said, my father's the expert on the Grail lore, and he has already sent an expedition out to go on a lead where they had unearthed this tablet that gave him a clue to where it might be. So he had already hired somebody to oversee it, and then, of course, Indiana Jones finds out it was his father that was hired, and he is now missing.
Yeah.
So now he has to go looking for him, and, of course, he ends up on his own quest of the Grail.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Brody joins, of course.
Yes, which makes it hilarious because Marcus Brody is so flighty, obviously very smart, but he's very flighty and lacks a lot of common sense. It's funny to watch him, how he, Indiana Jones remarks that he actually got lost in his own museum once, which is probably true,
Yeah. Then you also have Elsa,
Elsa, who was definitely, she turns out to be the antagonist in the whole thing.
Well, one of the antagonists. I mean, not really the full antagonist, but Donovan.
Don't know at first.
Donovan is the main antagonist.
You don't realize at first that she's a bad guy too, but then you soon find out that she is, and
Yeah.
That's when it
even
takes its
even
plot twist.
even breaks Indy's heart. So
Exactly.
to know that she is a spy. So,
But when he finds when he finds his father,
yeah,
that's what's so funny is that he gets through he swings through the window. You can tell with his father there's a respect there, but there's also a fear because the way he grew up and his father was was constantly, he was very much the authoritarian in the home. And even though he just kind of let him do his own thing, he respected his father and he feared his father. And you see that in the scene when Indiana Jones comes busting through the window on the whip, using the whip as the, to go swinging in.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in and his father busts him on the head. And Junior, it is you, Junior. And he's like, yes, sir. And he stands up and he's already been beaten over the head by this vase, and that Indy's father thought was this, this real expensive Ming vase, and he's looking at it and he goes, oh, it breaks the heart, and he's in the head and he says, thank God. And he thinks he's talking about him. And he's like, I'm okay. And he goes, it's a fake. He points to it. He says, look at the grain, and he's pointing to the clay, and he's just like, just like, this is the way he is. He doesn't pay attention to me. All he's after are his love is the antiquities, the artifacts, the history, and it's so funny how they play off each other.
Exactly,
they were great together. They
really
were.
Harrison Ford and Sean Connery.
Yeah,
and playing father and son.
Exactly.
And so of course, like, continuing on, because because that one joke that how did you know she was a Nazi? She talks in her sleep.
She talks in her sleep.
That was funny.
And then the line he says,
and there's
I'm as human as the next guy, and Harrison Ford says, I was the next guy. Mm-hmm. It was funny.
And then you also have that motorcycle chase,
Yeah, the motorcycle chase, and he's Indiana Jones is all impressed because he's managed to dodge these Nazis on motorcycles that are coming after him, and he dodges several of them. And then he looks over at his father, and his father's sitting there winding his pocket watch, and he's just giving him this very critical look, unapproving look, like, "Are you finished? Can we get on with this?" And then Indiana Jones is like, okay, and he keeps riding. But
right.
It's really funny to see that interaction. And you can see there's a respect there and there's a love there, but there's also sort of a strained relationship because he was estranged from his father mostly in his early years because, he says, his father tells him, he says, did I tell you to eat up or brush your teeth or wash your face? He said, I gave you your privacy. I taught you self-reliance, and so Indiana Jones learned to be who he was because he and his father really didn't have a close relationship.
Yeah.
Anyway, love the movie.
Yeah, and then because I almost forgot this because even Hitler makes an appearance in this.
That was hilarious, and he's holding it. He's got the book. He's got the Grail.
Well,
book,
that's the thing, because Indy and
they're done.
Indy and his dad, they're caught in like the people and so many people, just like, and what I'm saying, because and yet that's when he bumps into Hitler. So
and and Hitler, who was obviously clearly he was a narcissist among other things besides being a madman. But the fact that he's so narcissistic that when he gets this book, he doesn't even realize what he has in his hands, and he thinks, oh, he wants my autograph. So then he goes like this. His assistant hands him a pencil. He writes Adolf Hitler in the book, closes the book, hands it back to Indiana Jones, just keeps looking straight ahead and just walks on by. And that was so funny.
It was funny.
And then he's got, not only does he have a book that tells how to find the cup, the literal cup that was used in the Last Supper with Christ and his disciples, but it has Adolf Hitler's signature in it.
That's true.
Talk about difference between heaven and hell. I mean, it was just, that's the hilarity of the movie,
Exactly.
But I like the fact, that's another reason that I like the fact that the crucifixion of Christ is presented as an historic event. It was an historic event. It happened. It is not mythology. It is not, and I'm speaking as somebody who believes in my heart. It's not. It is an historic fact. It took place, but it goes beyond the historic. It's much more spiritual. But they explore that in this movie, and you see the power. You literally see, as you saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark, you literally see the power of God come into play because, jumping ahead a little bit, Dr. Jones, Henry Jones, he gets shot. Donovan shoots him. He knows that if he shoots him, he knows that'll give Indiana the incentive to go spring all those booby traps and recover the Grail.
Yeah.
But before he can, he's so greedy and he shoots his father. Of course, his father falls and he's critically wounded.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get help, he will die. And so Indy knows he's fighting against the clock. He has to get to that Grail if there's any hope of saving his father, because he knows that Grail is going to have healing powers, which of course it does. But once he gets through that last booby trap and crosses that bridge into the lion's mouth, the leap of faith, and gets into that hidden chamber where all those cups are, when Donovan comes in and the Nazi, I can't remember the character's name in the movie.
What? Help me out. Elsa.
Elsa comes in with Donovan.
I couldn't figure out who you were talking about. So
Elsa comes in with Donovan, and he lets her pick. He says, and he asks the knight. There's a knight that's been there for hundreds of years.
Yep.
But he's preserved because of the power of the Grail, and he was charged with guarding. He was the one who was
one of the three knights.
He was one of the three knights, one of the three Templars knights, and he was charged with guarding. He was the most. The honor was his because he was the most worthy. Mm-hmm. And so he was charged with guarding the Grail all those hundreds of years.
Right.
So he's very old, but he's not dead. And, he's frail and he's weak, but he is still alive.
Yeah.
And he's guarding that Grail. And so when Donovan and Elsa come in and Indiana's in there, they're looking around and he says, which one? And he says, you must choose.
But choose wisely. As the true Grail lies, false Grail will take it from you.
Exactly.
I'm not an historian. I have no idea what it looks like. Which one is it? And she, let me choose. Thank you, doctor.
And of course she picks the most elegant looking, this golden chalice with these jewels.
Donovan, just like it's more shiny than I ever thought.
It's more beautiful than I ever imagined.
Right.
This truly is the cup of the King of Kings. And he dips it into the well of water, and takes a drink, and of course he ages, and he just turns to dust.
What is happening to me?
What is happening to me?
Yeah, and those visuals of him being killed and such.
It was beautiful. It was great.
Industrial Light's magic. What can you say?
But
even back in the late '80s or throughout the '80s, So.
But then Indiana cuts to the chase. When he goes to look for it, he knows exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah, and Elsa. Well, no, it's like Elsa. It can't be made. It wouldn't be made out of gold, and he's like, "That's the cup of a carpenter." He grabs it. Right. There's only one way to find out.
Because it was a very simple chalice. Jesus would not have chosen something so elegant, so flashy. But Jesus was a carpenter when he was a boy. His father Joseph was a carpenter.
Right.
He learned the trade. He learned the skills of carpentry. So Jesus could have built a house if he wanted to. He was a skilled carpenter as a child, and then of course went into his ministry. As the Son of God, and the Bible history tells the rest.
Yeah.
But he literally gets that cup and takes a drink of it.
He immediately takes a drink of it. So that's what I like. That's what I like, because doesn't take his time or anything. He just immediately gets straight to it.
Takes the cup out, dashes out to where his father is, pours the cup of water.
Yeah, even the knight who says, "You have chosen wisely."
Exactly. And then he pours the cup over, and his father's wounds are healed. And they used cheap special effects because they used peroxide on that. You could tell it was peroxide because it was bubbling up.
You even forgot to mention Sala is in this film.
Sala is in this film, and Sala is a great character. He is a great character.
He is, yeah, from Raiders into this, and that one part where Indy, and just even Indy telling him, no camels, but he still gets the camels.
Exactly.
I guess Sala couldn't help himself.
Compensation for my brother-in-law's car.
Yeah.
Because the car got destroyed.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
To make it up, and for it being the camels, I guess, or
Exactly.
Right, yeah. And even that scene with the tank, pretty cool.
That was very cool, and I like it when they're up on the hill, and Indy's standing up, and he's got the binoculars, and his father's like, "Get down! What are you doing? You'll be seen." And he says, "They're a mile away," and all of a sudden you hear, and
it doesn't matter if they're far. They clearly would have binoculars.
And the artillery goes off like right behind them, and then they have to make a mess, and it blows up the car. That's the one that gets the car as the first shot out of the tank, and
right.
There's a lot of hilarity in that movie, and it's mainly the interaction between Indiana Jones and his father.
Right.
When they first come, when the German soldier first comes as Dr. Jones, they both go, "Yes."
I know.
They both answer.
I know.
It's
and that. No, go ahead.
There was the line when he is the German captain is actually the one that you see that's on the tank that Indy bails out, and the tank is going over the cliff, and it's like the close up going, "Ah!" And it's just like right up. And but when he first gets down into the tank, he pulls his glove off, and he's smacking Dr. Jones, and he says. And he's telling him, he says, "Why did you come all the way back to Berlin?" He says, "You had the book, or you had the map. Why did you need the book?" And he says, "Why would you need the book?" And he keeps repeating it. And finally, he says, "What does it tell me when you?" And he grabs his hand. Dr. Jones grabs his hand and goes, "It tells me that goose-stepping morons like yourself should read more books instead of burning them." Love that line. Perfect line.
Oh, man.
Yes, I like to imitate Sean Connery as Dr. Jones.
Yeah, my favorite line from Sean Connery, Henry Jones, "You call this archaeology?" I love that line. I just love that line.
I know, I love it.
Yeah,
it's funny.
but you do it because, your impression.
You call this archaeology?
Yeah, I think I do it pretty good. You call this archaeology? So
yeah, his is more of a, he comes out of the tank. "You call this archaeology?"
That's how he says it, yeah.
Yeah, just like that.
That's how he says it. Also forgot to mention the scene with them on the blimp,
Oh, yeah.
And that part where, Indy disguises himself and, tickets please, and, he knocks out one of the other main antagonists,
Yeah.
And, knocks him out of the window and no ticket,
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they're in that plane, And yet throughout that, they get out of the plane, they're still being chased by those that are in the planes,
Mm-hmm.
And it leads up to the final plane where Henry, he's got this and he uses his umbrella, because of the seagulls.
Yeah, he says he suddenly remembers his Charlemagne. He says, let the mountains be my armies, let the birds of the air be my whatever, however he words it. But he used those seagulls as an offensive weapon against those Spitfire, those World War II fighter planes, German fighters that were coming in after him.
Exactly.
And it caused them to fly and obliterated the plane.
Yeah. And then, of course, near the end of it, because, Elsa grabs a hold of the Grail, Of course, even Indy tells her, the knight said not to cross the line.
The seal, Great Seal. And she's trying to get it, and you can see the greed in her eyes.
Oh, she does. She does grab it. She does get a hold of it, but,
but she sacrificed. She's so greedy. Her greed in the end is what kills her, because all she had to do was give Indy her other hand. She could have let it go, but then Indy almost does the same thing. And his father...
That's the thing. Just quickly with Elsa, she was kind of going back and forth, if she was, I guess, on the good side or bad side or whatever.
She was on the bad side, but
there were
in
times.
the end, she was greedy. She wanted the Grail for herself. She still wanted Indiana, and she wanted them both to take it.
See, that's why there were a few times where, Elsa still had feelings for Indy, and even when, because her reaction, because when Indy's father got shot.
Right, but she couldn't be trusted. She couldn't be trusted. She would sell him out in a heartbeat because she was an opportunist, and she was just looking for fame and probably immortality, just like Donovan was.
Yeah.
But I like the scene when Indiana is
jumping back to that.
He's trying to get the chalice, the Holy Grail,
right?
And he's like, I can almost reach it, Dad.
He's this close to getting it.
And Sean Connery's character, Dr. Jones says, he just in a very calm voice, he says,
and out of nowhere, he says, Indiana,
Indiana,
let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, I've got to let it go. And then he gives him his other hand, and he's able to pull him to safety. And the Grail is lost. But
yep. And that shot where, the knight, he's off in the distance or something, and he puts his hand up waving to them, saying goodbye. So,
but the ending of that movie was so great because they are literally all of them. They are Sala, Henry, Indiana,
and Marcus.
Marcus are all riding into the sunset. Of course, Marcus takes off and loses control of his.
The horse just and I forget what Sean.
Henry, Indy, follow me. I know the way. And he,
I know.
The horse takes off.
So,
he's got lost in his own museum, huh? And he says, "Yep,
yes, sir." Ha! And of course, the music plays. They ride off and such. And that shot where
right off into the sunset, and Indy finally catches up to him and rides him on the horse.
I know.
It's great, absolutely great movie. One of my absolute favorites.
What a way to end it for them, just riding off into the sunset and with the credits rolling.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know this because even Spielberg said there was a reason why he invented that shot of them riding off into the sunset. He felt that was the closing curtain from the trilogy.
Yeah, it was a good closing curtain.
Yeah,
really
but that was until The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Well, and now they're talking about another Indiana Jones movie.
Well, it's still going to be made, so
And I don't know when they're going to make it, but they better hurry because,
Yeah.
Harrison Ford's getting up there.
Yeah, and here's another thing. Because that originally in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Sean Connery was offered to appear in the fourth film?
I knew I had read online years ago, I had read a purported script for Indiana Jones 4. And it was... it started out with Indiana at the altar getting ready. He was going to be married. The woman he was marrying was she was she was like in the military, but she worked for the CIA.
Well, it was not Mary, so
and she was called away, and she didn't show up at the wedding, and he thought she had jilted him.
I think you might have told me this before, but it's probably been a while.
Then there's a scene where Indiana and his father and whoever's in the wedding party, they're sitting at a bar. And Indiana's kind of drinking his sorrows away, and Henry's, trying to comfort him and, saying, another one will come along or whatever. And, but what ends up happening is she's called away because the Roswell crash happens. This is in 1947. They're getting married, and the evening they're getting married is when the Roswell crash happens. They find out about it, and she's called away. She's ordered. And so she has to skip her wedding, and she doesn't even have time to tell Indy what's going on. So the movie was the original script, or one of the scripts that they come up with was about that it dealt with the Roswell incident in 1947.
Right.
And so obviously it never happened, but it was interesting that aliens were in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That's what it was about. It was about aliens who actually had found they created the Gold City, or they helped the Incas create the Gold City.
Right. And
the City of Gold.
Right. And with Sean Connery, because he was offered for the role in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and he turned it down because he was enjoying he found retirement more enjoyable.
Well, with the kind of money he's got, I'm sure he was.
Yeah. And I remember reading this. George Lucas even established saying that if Sean Connery did appear in it, and maybe just say for a cameo, then that would have disappointed the fans, as he would have not joined along in the adventure.
Well, the cameo he ended up getting was
a picture.
Was his picture.
Yeah, because as Indy is at his house and his desk, first Dad and then Marcus, and there's a picture of Marcus Brody. So
how do we get on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Well, still, because we're reviewing movies that have to do with Sean Connery.
Exactly.
So we've done this before, so
I know we go down rabbit holes.
Yeah,
quite frequently.
And also, as I mentioned, we're reviewing a couple of Sean Connery movies. So
exactly.
So what do we have to say about The Last Crusade? Still,
classic.
Any last words?
Classic film.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorites. One of my all-time favorite movies.
Yes, one of your all-time favorite. One of our all-time favorites, and probably our favorite of the number one favorite Indiana Jones film.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
So definitely. And I guess we give this 2 thumbs up and 10 out of 10?
Yes.
10
2 thumbs up.
And 10 out of 10, so...
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you guys let us know what you think of The Last Crusade. Just, if you enjoyed, if it's your favorite, just whatever. So, and literally, the first time that you'd see, say, one of us wearing a type of hat like this. But why not? This is Indiana Jones, so, you know, at least we're that. Well, we could do it again, say, when we review the rest of the Indiana Jones films.
Right.
Right, so, again, 2 thumbs up for The Last Crusade, and 10 out of 10. We hope you enjoyed our review of The Last Crusade. More reviews coming your way. Keep looking forward. They're going to be awesome. Any last words?
I must be off.
Little Blue says, I must be off. For me, again, we hope you enjoyed our review of The Last Crusade, and we'll see you guys in the next video/review video. Take care, and peace out. Fedora.